Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stir the Coco. We have a great show for you today. And remember to follow us on Stir the Coco on YouTube and here at BCTV. Well, vamos, let's get started. My guest today is Karen Faith Gordon, and she is a clinical gerontologist, and she is also the founder and owner of Karen Faith LLC. Karen, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, first of all, I think our audience would want to know, can you define what clinical gerontologist is?
Yes, thank you for asking the question. And I'll start by saying when I earned my master's degree, I also earned, along with that degree, a specialist in aging certificate, which, let's say, qualified me to call myself a gerontologist, yet I was 23 years old. Wow. So I walked, across the stage with my certificate that defined me as something that, now that I look back, while I earned the degree and I did the work and I appreciate what I learned, it's been the years of conversations and experiences and within my own life and within the lives of my clients that have really prepared me to have the confidence to be in these conversations and the competence to discuss longevity, end of life, a diagnosis, how we move through these various challenges and transitions of aging.
Well, I mean, we need to, like I said. Let's go back to your journey. You said, people said as a child, they called you an old soul. And then your journey through life led you into this profession. What things, were happening in your life that led you to be intrigued by this profession?
Yeah, thank you. I was a very quiet child, painfully shy, and I think I asked a lot of questions and had a lot of curiosity. And while I don't know the questions I asked, I know that they evoked a response of, oh, she's an old soul, or you're an old soul. So I suspect I had introspective questions, and I wouldn't call myself a precocious child. I was a very quiet, introspective child. And then as I grew into myself and developed into who I am today, my life experiences and the support and love of really wonderful adults in my life, especially the active older adults in my life, my grandparents in particular, and my parents, really set an example of what longevity looks like in a very healthy, active, engaged way.
And what is one lesson that maybe your grandparents shared with you that you've kind of kept with you throughout these years?
Thank you. I love these questions. My grandma would say, if it is to be, it's up to me. And that's a guidepost for me until this day. And about 10 years ago, I actually participated in a leadership development, a personal development and leadership training. And unbelievably, in the midst of that training, that quote came up.
No.
And I got chills and tears, and because my grandmother was already gone, yet it brought that message back to me, and it reactivated that whole sense of empowerment, that if it is to be, it's up to me. And that's really what has prompted me and sustained me. It still sustains me as a guidepost, like I said, to really look at life through that lens of, okay, if it is to be, it's up to me.
Okay, that magical moment. And so now you've been, after 30 years experience working in the field, helping families, what is one piece of advice that you would give anyone related to aging, even before they experience that journey? What's one piece of advice that you would give them?
Well, I like to remind people that we're all aging. None of us is exempt.
No, wait.
Right? So we're all aging, and if we look at aging, if we pathologize everything about our aging process, then life becomes one big pathology, And so, in other words, the power of reframing our experiences in a way that empowers us rather than diminishes us, that our light should continue to grow, and that we can give ourselves grace when things change and when things happen, rather than the sky is falling and things are, why is everything happening to me? It's really distilling that down to things are happening, and how am I going to choose to respond to them?
So, you know, everyone can have that light even until they're on their deathbed, that you still can find that
Yes.
in the journey.
Yes. And I don't mean it to come across as simple. It's not.
Okay.
Okay, I want to be very clear that these challenges are real, and a diagnosis is serious, and the kinds of experiences that we have throughout life shape us. You know, so if we've had trauma, and if we've had experiences that have taught us to be led by fear, which in our culture that
yes.
oftentimes is what the messaging that's embedded.
Yes.
We really get to consciously flip that script. So how can I see this through a lens of possibility? What are the possibilities? What are the opportunities for me to either learn, grow, connect, find something that can sustain me in a way that keeps me uplifted rather than succumbing to the negativity, because that rabbit hole is always there.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
very
Our
real.
brain, right? It
Yeah.
always likes the negative and
Right. So that
Yes.
so we can I call it a mental muscle we can flex to make it more accessible and make it our default quicker into gratitude, into appreciation. And I like to make a distinction sometimes between, because this was very meaningful for me when I learned it, sometimes we consider, if we hear gratitude, people might think, oh, that's toxic positivity. And that is not what I'm talking about. I mean, it's important to have positivity in our life. What I suggest is looking at a situation that you might not be grateful for, like a diagnosis, right? Yet, what in the context of this diagnosis and what is happening, what can I appreciate about it? Perhaps the community that's revealed itself to me, a practitioner who's become a very meaningful part of my life that I wouldn't have known without this. I asked this question last night in a care partner group that I run and I facilitate, and it was really interesting to hear. Care partner meaning the person who's been diagnosed. In this group, it was mostly husbands and wives, but there are also adult children. Okay. And being able to look at the situation through the lens of what can I appreciate about this situation that has strengthened our relationship or has given me a new way to see my partner or my parent. And that can be really, that's a very, very powerful perspective to hold in these challenging moments.
I think, so then I think moving on towards that is when there are caregivers, what are positive steps or some steps that they should begin to start having? So, you know, when you reach a situation where you have a loved one with aging issues, yes. What are the maybe first 3 steps that you recommend the family should take, the caregiver should take?
Well, I always suggest, and again, it sounds simple and I know it's not, yet I want to say, I always remind people to pause, breathe, and assess, and put some space between yourself and what's happening as an observer. So rather than reacting to our knee-jerk reactions to our assessment of a situation as good, bad, right, or wrong, which is hardwired. We all do it.
Yes.
Welcome to the human condition.
Of that.
Right.
Yes.
So when we can assess and observe our reactions, we can choose a different response. We can notice. We can be aware of the thought that we default to and notice what it does in our body, if it prompts anxiety, if it activates a sense of fear. We can look at that. We can notice it. Now I know a caregiver might say to me, are you kidding me, Karen? I don't have time for that. Like, I am running around being a caregiver.
Yes.
It's exhausting.
Yes.
And caregiver fatigue and caregiver burnout, these are real things. Yes. So it can be a micro moment. It could be opening up the window for some fresh air. If you can't leave the house, maybe taking a walk onto your front porch, noticing there's a mindfulness practice. There's different variations of it. I'll name one: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, our senses, right? So even if we walk on our front porch and notice 3 to 5 things: what I see, what I taste, what I hear, what I touch. When I start to notice things outside of myself, I'm actually guiding my thoughts in a different direction. So the thoughts that are consuming me about when's my next appointment and what is the blood work going to say and how's my spouse going to handle this, or how am I going to handle when they need this level of care, we can pause, give ourselves grace that in this present moment we are here, and take that micro moment to show yourself compassion. Self-compassion is a very powerful tool to realize that what you're going through is a challenge, yet you are showing up for it in your very best way that you can, and you're doing your best, and that is enough. Most caregivers live with a mantra of feeling that they're not doing enough, and that.
Yes. And what are some tips you could give that caregiver you already did, even just
also
taking a moment.
Understanding that resilience looks like accepting help when it's offered and asking for help when it's needed. And in our culture or society, I think that we tend toward we're inclined to think that signifies weakness. People think, I can't ask for help. I'm not weak, I'm strong. Well, guess what? When we grow our ecosystem through asking for help or accepting it when it's offered, we are strengthening ourselves. And that strength is what resilience is.
So that is important for caregivers because they do try to do it all. I mean, I have a neighbor that is trying to do everything. We're like, we're here to help you. We can run to the store for you. Or
redefine it as interdependence. And often I say, no one is seeking to take away the independence that you so desire. I mean, we are, at the end of the day, we're mostly purposeful, self-determined people, and no one wants to lose that. Absolutely. When a diagnosis starts to compromise us in some way, there can be a redefined way, a way of looking at independence redefined as, I am still independent with some support.
And that's the grace that you give yourself.
Yes.
So once you have your, kind of everyone's organized in the home, who's doing what, you have a family member, let's say, that is going through cognitive issues. How do we take a moment and figure out how to listen to the loved one that's struggling with cognitive issues? What can the family do to listen to their needs and without, maybe getting impatient, or what can they do? Because a lot of families need that.
I often call it precious presence, like being really mindful of your presence in any given moment. And again, I feel like in the world we live in today, because our attention can be so fractured, it's actually a gift we can give someone when we give them our attention. And I also remind people that I notice in my own aging process that there's an invisibility factor, that there's a way that society tends to dismiss us as we age, which that's a whole nother conversation.
I've heard that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
yes.
When someone is experiencing cognitive decline, or frankly any kind of decline, it seems to elevate that level of invisibility because people, to your point, don't always have patience or want to look for the person who can do it faster or answer it quicker. And what I want to encourage is for people, especially with someone who is looking at their loved one who is in decline, to be mindful that it is a disease process that they're going through, that and to the curiosity around the behaviors or the changes that are happening. Teepa Snow is an expert in this field, and something she always says is meet them where they're at, which I hear actually a lot in other iterations lately, which I think makes perfect sense. Of course, meet people where they're at. But when you meet someone where they're at, when they're experiencing especially cognitive decline, it's a reminder that this is their reality. When they ask a question 5 times in what seems like 5 seconds, they're not doing it on purpose. They're not doing it to create an annoyance. Their brain, every moment is truly a new moment. And so that's where the caregiver A gets to be cognizant of, my person is experiencing a significant change in their brain that is causing this to happen, which can be so difficult, especially for adult children who are now in a sense role reversing.
Absolutely.
And
you're like, I can't take do I take a breath? How do I approach this?
Right.
Yes.
And if you do find yourself, which caregivers often tell me that they feel guilty or often sort of just saddened by their own short fuse, you know, like they'll say, oh, I really wasn't nice, you know. Understand that you're doing your best under a circumstance that is challenging you in ways that you never expected and likely didn't prepare for. Most people don't know what to expect.
Right.
And so give yourself the grace. If you can walk away and take a breath, take 2 or 3 breath cycles. I often, our breath is there for us to regulate. We can regulate our own nervous system, and guess what? When we can regulate our own nervous system, that will be mirrored in our person. So they read our energy. I mean, energy is contagious, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
in regular everyday life, you know, so it's a way of being rather than doing. It's not about, we're human beings, right? So it's more about the beingness of being calm, of embodying that sense of, I'm here for my person, and I'm loving, and I'm loyal, and I'm committed to this person, rather than I'm,
Yes, because I think some people approach it as, I want to try to fix them, or you just want to go snap out of this.
Thank you for naming that. That's huge.
Yes.
Huge. I can't tell you how many caregivers, especially, because most of my clients are educated people who have spent their whole lives fixing things. If you're an engineer or you're a professor or you're a doctor, people come to you to fix something.
Yes.
And this is something we get to live with, manage, and create a new reality around. We're not fixing it. We're not, not yet. Medical technology aside, in the moment we're in, when that question gets asked for the 100th time, it's answer the question, it's taking an extra breath yourself if you need to yes, we're going to the doctor at 1 o'clock.
And that's, so is that kind of the emotional, how to navigate the emotional part of this process?
Yes.
What are some tips that you can give us on how to handle the emotional part of the aging process, or when you're witnessing it?
There's a very interesting and very powerful way to look at this through the lens of both and.
Okay.
So I am both losing my person, because I want to name the grief that comes with this, ambiguous grief. I can't tell you how often people say to me, well, I'm not in grief, my person is still here. Well, that's true. And the person that you've known for most of your life is changing. And they're changing in ways that you don't identify them as the person that you knew. Right. And so there's a loss there, and that gets to be spoken, because again, there are different emotions that come up with that. Yeah. And so the both and is for caregivers who feel guilty that they just wish that their life wasn't like this. Well, okay, you can wish that, it's okay. Of course you want your life the way it was before, and I'm here now. My person is still here, and how and what can it look like to make this moment dignified, and what does that look like for my own self-preservation and the dignity of my person? And how do I show up so that both of us optimize that?
I love the how do I show up. That's definitely, yes.
Yeah.
And well, in the end, I think they both can navigate this together, right?
Yes.
It's a journey. I
is.
see that as a journey for a lot of.
Yeah.
Well, are there any other things you'd like to share with us? I know you have a book
Oh,
here.
I love this book. It's like Bible's not the right word, but it's just a
really important book.
To me.
Tell us. I'm so curious. I'm like, oh, I can't wait till she talks about this.
And it's funny. It's by a man who goes by Ram Dass, who's no longer on this side of the veil. He passed away a few years ago. And actually, in the 70s, he wrote a book that many people might be familiar with called Be Here Now. So he was a very sought-after speaker and teacher of mindfulness, and he was someone who had quite a following in his day. And when he was, I think, around 65, he had written many books and about life and about different philosophies. And I don't want to say too much. You can look him up. But he wrote this book after he had suffered a massive stroke. And his body had suffered such a violation through the trauma of this stroke that he went from being an incredibly active, fit, healthy, aging man to someone who was now wheelchair bound and dependent on people who cared for him to make sure that his life maintained the quality and dignity that it did until he passed away. In this book, there are so many lessons. I love it. It's called Still Here, Embracing Aging, Changing, and Dying. Wow. And he wrote it from this perspective of, how do I recreate my life with an identity that I'm just learning now, because it was so counter to the person. It's like a rebirth
of another persona.
Right. And something he says in here is how, the ways that he notices our approach, generally speaking, to life, and how we're always trying to turn back the clock. And he comments in the book about how he thinks of it as almost going out and trying to paint the leaves of fall that are in the beautiful hues of oranges and yellows and reds, and trying to paint them green, as if you could. And why are we running around trying to paint the leaves green?
I think that takes more energy, doesn't it?
Yes. So there's so many lessons in this book.
So which is your favorite Post-it? Like, what is?
Well, that's one of them. And then also the difference between wisdom and information. So like, we gain information and we acquire it through our life. However, wisdom is something that we earn or we accumulate over time. And I love that because, again, in our culture, we tend to value intelligence, like, what do you know?
Right.
And we get to remember how important wisdom is, and how aging is the biggest contributor to our wisdom.
And there's other cultures where, the elder folks are on a pedestal, and people seek out to learn more and get advice.
Exactly.
And I feel like we need more of that in our society.
Yes. I mean, learning is important, of course. Yes. And only by being at this age and stage of my own life do I now realize how much the wisdom that comes is from a lifetime so far of acquiring different experiences and collections of memories and people and things that have happened, that only through those moments have I gained the competence to be in the conversation I'm in. People often conflate, confidence with competence. And,
yes.
When I became a social worker with my master's degree and my specialist in aging, I'm glad that I had confidence. My confidence then looks very different than it does today, because I would have had well-founded confidence, and my competence looked very different to be in the conversations then that I'm in now. And I wasn't doing the same kind of work then. I was in the nonprofit world, and I worked in senior housing, HUD subsidized senior housing, and so only now do I see how much I learned through those experiences as a young social worker who was out in the world
Incredible.
thing. Yeah.
And now you need your own book. And we'll have Post-its on it.
Right now, my clients see the books in my office and they know when I've taken a deep dive.
When
I've
it's
got
a
all
good book. That's a good book.
Yeah.
We're all going to check it out. Well, before we go, I have a tradition. We have La Manzana, the apple.
Okay.
And there's just a little question in here, and then I'll teach you a Spanish word.
Oh, thank you.
So here is your question, Karen.
Okay.
What is one simple daily habit that can help create a more fulfilling life as we age?
Breathing. Noticing our breath. No,
Yes, yes.
I'm also a yoga practitioner. So my
Oh,
go-to
so that is
is movement. Movement, and as I get older, I especially like meditative movement. And honestly, if it's not going to be movement in the form of yoga or walking or biking, it can be coloring. I've learned to love, I was gifted an adult coloring book a few years ago, and I find it to be the most meditative activity when I'm sitting and I can just take a box of crayons or colored pencils or whatever that looks like and color. I find it meditative and a very positive way to channel my energy. And in fact, one new thing I'm going to try that I've recently learned about are called Zen tangles.
Yes.
Okay, so
yes,
I'm going to be.
I've heard that.
Yeah,
Yes.
so-
My mother-in-law was showing me, and
Yes.
it is great.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
This-
yes.
wow.
And being with people, you know, the groups that I run, a group will always remind you of, it affirms our experience as a collective experience, because aging and caregiving and a lot of the things we've talked about can be very isolating, and this is really the most unhealthy thing we can do for ourselves, is to isolate. So when we can educate groups like the classes you teach, you come together with other like-minded people and you're engaged and you're learning and you're connecting. So whether it's mindful movement and or something meditative that allows you to channel some of your energy in a creative way, or being out in the world, hearing a lecture, going to the
just
library.
simple things.
They're so simple, and yet because they're so simple, I think they get overlooked. And I want to illuminate those so that people will remember how powerful they are.
So there's something for everyone.
Yes.
They could get involved.
Yes.
And I just have to ask, do you use the color purple a lot in your coloring book?
Yes, I love purple's my favorite color.
So that's a marker you grab, huh?
Yes. How could you tell?
Well, Karen, it's been literally a true honor to have you today, and thank you. I know you're very busy, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. And well, we're off. So adios.